My name is Jay Byer, CEO of the Greater Des Moines Partnership, and very excited about the upcoming program that you're all going to be hearing here. We're featuring three folks who I've known for a long time and who are doing some really extraordinary things in our community. And for those of you who are familiar with the Greater Des Moines Partnership, you know that one of our core things that we try to do is attract and retain top talent, and a big part of that is placemaking and creating a very robust quality of life. And a big part of that is the music economy. And I think that what has happened in the past decade plus in Greater Des Moines has been nothing short of extraordinary. And with what's happened here in the last 5 or 6 weeks with the COVID-19 pandemic, has really thrown a curveball at arts and culture, not only in our community, but across the country and across the world. And with the limits now on audience participation and really a way for musicians and arts and cultural organizations to generate revenue has really created some really interesting challenges. At the same time, innovation and creativity in the music industry has never been more important, and there's been some really unique pivots that have happened. Some great examples here within Greater Des Moines as well too. So we're going to be hearing today from Tony Bonenkamp. Tony is a musician and is well known in this community and playing in lots of different venues and corporate events. And he's also recently been one of the founders of DSM TV Live. So we're going to be hearing from him shortly. Also with us, we have Maestro Joseph Junta, who is with the music director and conductor of the Des Moines Symphony. I am a subscriber for the Symphony and go to lots of shows. My daughter is a huge fan, so it's great, Joseph, for you to be joining us today as well too. And then finally, we have Max Wellman, who is a very well-known performer in town as well too, a jazz artist, and also one of the owners of Noche, and again a really important part of the fabric of the Greater Des Moines music community. So, gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. And we're going to, what we'll do is have some opening remarks, and I think Tony's got some slides. We'll do a couple questions, and then we'll go to the chat for Q&A. So, Tony Bonenkamp, you're up.
Thank you, Jay, and thanks very much, everybody, for joining. Hope you're all having a wonderful day and getting along with all of your family that you're stuck inside with. As he said, my name is Tony Bonenkamp. I have been a musician in Des Moines for 23 years as a profession. I was in a band called the Nadas for a lot of years, played drums. And this new venture that we have is called DSM TV Live. It's Facebook-based at the moment. If anyone want to look it up, it's just DSM TV Live. And I started that with John Locker, who is another guy I played in the Nadas with for a long time. And he and I also opened Sonic Factory Studios here in town in '07. Then I also have Jerry, almost said Jerry Seinfeld. You'll see why in a second. Jerry Lawrenson, who is my dueling piano partner in Piano Palooza. We're a dueling piano act here in Des Moines. And then the other guy is Brad Seidenfeld. And Brad and John own a company called Jabbermouth Media. So anyway, when we all saw that our St. Patrick's Day gigs were getting canceled, we tried to figure some way to turn around and do something positive. And so we luckily have space over in the Red Noise 6 building over in Urbandale, where we have 3 different areas and potentially 4 or 5 where we can put guests. We broadcast music performances from local artists, whether they be live in studio or potentially a recorded video. The slides that are on the screen right now, or when they said, do you have any slides? I thought, well, this is a good way to show people kind of what traction we're getting. But we've had a pretty approaching 200,000 people reach with our videos and shows and all of that stuff. We've had comedians on, we've had drink makers, craft cocktailers, whatever you call them on, and solo artists, bands, all of this stuff. And it's all viewer funded. So we have our Venmo up on screen so people can make donations to the band and to our production and all of that stuff. And it's been pretty crazy. but I feel like we're doing some really, really good stuff. And we've got a couple of things in the works that are really promising with some great people. And who the heck knows, sorry, how long this is going to last and how long we're not all going to be able to gather together, because the four of us within DSM TV Live, as well as the people that you'll see on the rest of the webinar today, we all make our living from music. And when they take away things that people gather at that we get then hired for to play, luckily my wife is still working from home. Hi, honey. And we have a little bit of an income, but this is just some way for us to try to help out musicians and help ourselves all at the same time. So, is that good?
Yes, thank you, Tony.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, great job. And I should also mention too that we're partnering with DSM TV Live, both with our In for Lunch series, which we kicked off last week, featuring local musicians and encouraging folks over the lunch hour from on Thursdays from noon to 1 to not only support live music, but also to support local restaurants. And we'll have 3 more weeks of that as well too. And then it was just announced today that the Downtown Farmers Market is partnering with DSM TV on a live show for the next 3 Saturday mornings. So it's been a nice partnership with us too. And so Tony, thank you for that. Thanks for making that happen. Our
pleasure, and thanks to you and the rest of the partnership as well.
Okay, next up, we are going to go to Maestro Joseph Junta with the Des Moines Symphony.
Thanks, Jay. You know, it's heartbreaking to see what's happened in our business, and there's a point in one's life when you think, when you become a certain age, that that nothing that you see will or experience will shock you. And I can say without a question, without a doubt in my mind, that I'm sure you feel the same way, that this is certainly shocking to me and to many of us. I've got friends all over the world that are secluded, not working, isolated, some sick, and it's very disturbing to see and experience all this. But I'm also quite confident and determined that what we all do, coupled with some really creative and interesting leadership, will come together and make the decisions that we make over the next few weeks will be quite exciting, I think. And when that all clear signal is sounded, I think people will gather, whether it's to hear Tony, to hear Max, to hear the Des Moines Symphony, to hear whatever live performances are in Central Iowa. People are going to gather in numbers that we've never experienced before. It might take some time, but I'm confident that that'll happen. It's also no secret to me during these times that people turn to music in times of celebrations, also our tragedies. So when words can't communicate our feelings, I like to say that music expresses what's inexpressible. It's not anything we really we can't touch it, but it touches us in a variety of ways that are just inexplainable. It's profound. It can alter the way we view ourselves, but also view our place in the world. So it's also great medicine. And my medicine is listening to music, and I do that every single day. And that hasn't changed pre-COVID-19 and won't change after COVID-19. But I think most importantly is to stay connected to our audiences. And that's what we're really trying to do. And it won't be any surprise or secret to any of you that are listening that musicians can be, specifically musicians, but all artists can be quite creative in how we go about staying in touch with our audiences. And in my area, the orchestra area, seeing orchestras all over the world that are just simply not doing anything, sitting at home. But the Des Moines Symphony is coming up with some pretty cool things. We launched DMSO at home videos. These are musician created content. They usually last 4 or 5 minutes. They include performances or humorous takes on their daily lives. And we're trying to roll out a couple of those videos a week. We also have a DMSO at home live series, which is basically a streaming live concerts. We've done a couple with Hannah Woolley and Genevieve Salomon, dueling violins. We're doing one, did one last Sunday with our principal harpist, Aaron Brooker Miller. This week is our principal flutist, James Blanchard. So those are fun, and people are giving us good feedback about those. And then I'm participating in a small way in something we're calling DMSO at Home Listening Room. So I'm taking just a topic and just talking about it for 5 or 6 or 7 minutes, listening to some music, the symphonies of Beethoven, the symphonies of Mozart, maybe my impressions about these in sort of a peripheral way, but just something to keep me in front of the audiences. So we've got some other streaming concerts. Of course, we use Spotify a lot. So if I reference a piece of music, it brings us back to Spotify so that people can get to those links and hear some music. So that's what keeps me busy, and that's what keeps our organization busy. And Jay, I applaud you and your team there for not only hosting this, but doing such a great job of what you do in the community. And we're all benefits of that good work. And I know many people join me in saying we appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate those comments very much, and your leadership as well. And we know it's tough out there for you guys, so appreciate the creativity and what you're doing, and look forward to getting back in the seats and watching live. Next up is Max Wellman, and I know many of you know Max. Fantastic musician and a great business guy too, with what he's been doing with Noche, and a really great addition to downtown and the region to have that club. And Max, do you want to just talk about some of the things that you guys have been doing to make some pivots and kind of to make the best of the current situation?
Sure. I think that it's a very unique situation because it involves planning on so many different levels. There's a huge amount of uncertainty at every stage of this crisis, where you have to, I find myself making plans for this business under many plans within plans within plans. If this happens, then we go to this. If this happens, then we go to this. And thankfully, I'm surrounded by a wonderful team here at Noche that has really been able to bear down and make some great programming happen during this crazy time. So we pretty immediately, after the shutdown started, decided to really commit to doing some live streaming content here from the club in order to get things at least to our most devoted regulars here at the club, and to also get some work to some of the musicians that we're used to playing here. Noche is pretty much, we do just about 80% of our programming is locally based. And there are a lot of musicians that play with many bands that play here, and they're here on a weekly basis. So to get rid of all that programming at once was, of course, quite a shakeup for some of our most regular musicians here. So we committed early on to doing that, and we've been pretty much on a schedule with some variation of doing a show every Wednesday and every Saturday that's streamed live through our Facebook page. And I have to say that overall, the response to that has been very positive to us. Even on some of the lower attended shows, the average number of attendees or viewers is way more than enough to constitute a full house here at Noche. And when it comes to our regulars especially, people have been very generous about contributing to the musicians and the club for those shows. So we're still hiring musicians and, of course, doing things in as safe a way as possible by limiting entry to the building and keeping things within a small circle of rotating musicians that come into the space to play those shows. But I'm trying to see it as an opportunity to kind of stretch into that kind of programming when really it was probably a good idea in the first place to do more of that digital content.
We've got a question. I've got some other questions too here. The first question, this is from Mike Jefferson from our team. Just wanted to know with all three of you, is the upcoming information on your concerts available on your website? We'd like to incorporate some of this into our DSM USA weekly podcast for things for people to do.
So I'll just take that one first real quick. We are doing a little bit of a different schedule than we regularly would, because there is so much reacting happening in real time as we are producing shows. Whereas normally we'd have 3 months of concerts scheduled and put on our website. Right now we're just going week by week. By Monday morning every week, we have the week's shows as Facebook events on our page. And outside of this week, tonight we're doing a special program with Iowa Public Radio. So we moved our Wednesday show to Tuesdays. Outside of this week, we're committed to continuing a Wednesday and Saturday night show, both of those starting at 8 p.m. For the foreseeable future.
I can go next. To echo what Max said, ours is a week by week thing too, because we found that there's been probably at least 5 groups or acts that have committed to something, and then 4 days later they hear a report about something and it changes their mind about whether they're willing to venture out, which is completely understandable, and we can never fault anyone for that, because everybody's obviously got their own personal take on everything. But like Max said, usually by Monday morning we have a pretty solid schedule for the week. Now, how we differ from Noche is that we try to run shows every Wednesday through Sunday. Now, this past weekend, we didn't have anybody we could book for Saturday or Sunday, so we took those 2 days off. We added a podcast that's on tonight called the K-Bye podcast. Not to do advertising here, but these 2 hilarious girls, Maya from Wildflower is one of them. So we do that now every Tuesday night for the foreseeable future. Every Wednesday night is our dueling, not to compete with Max here, but our Wednesday night dueling piano show starts at 9. So maybe you can give Max a little love. Anyway, this week, there's probably not going to be a show on Thursday. So what I would suggest is, if you want to find a schedule, go to our Facebook page, which is DSM TV Live. And we have an event made for every single thing that is happening, including the lunch series that we're doing with the partnership. Since we just got stuff ironed out for the farmers market, we're starting to put those events up. And so just keep your eye on our events within that page. And that is pretty much all we have at this point.
And we've on our website is up to date and seems to be brought up to date daily. We primarily have canceled all of our events, our live events, through June 14th, and we're currently taking a look at our summer events. And we'll probably be making a decision on those in the next week or 2. But if you look on our website, you'll see that primarily we're promoting, for example, as I talked earlier, our principal flutist is playing a live recital, live stream recital online on May 3rd at 7 o'clock. And after that, it gets into the summer activities, but who knows if those are going to take place or not.
So as a follow-up question, Max and Tony, are you guys using exclusively Facebook Live? And Joseph, are you using Facebook as well, or are you using a different platform?
We are using Facebook also, and we're using all of our platforms are in operation. But to find out about those, we start with dmsymphony.org. People can find out the information on how to get links to those other platforms.
Ours is, and we're trying to figure out a way to stream. We have a website which just takes you right now to our Facebook page, and we're trying to figure out a way to be able to stream just to a website so people that don't have Facebook can still partake. What was I had a train of thought? Anyway, that's Facebook is exclusively where we are right now, just because we thought about YouTube, and Facebook really gives you the ability to connect with people during the broadcast. Like, you can see comments in real time and respond. And then there's a sense of community that way. So we found that Facebook Live is the best way to do what we want to do.
We have also had that experience, but we have also started simultaneously streaming the shows on our YouTube page, and we've been testing that internally so far, but tonight is actually the first time where we'll have both streams going that people can actually access. And that'll be through Noche's YouTube page. I would say to anyone who's interested specifically in Noche's programming, we're staying in close contact with people on a weekly basis on our email list, where we will send out direct links to the shows, including these YouTube links now. So that's never a bad idea to get on that email newsletter. And you can do that by going to our website, which is nochedsm.com. And that way, you know, most people are on Facebook, but if you're not, we want you to be able to see the shows as well too. But that does lead to a larger point of, you know, all of us had to figure out how to become proficient at a lot of things that we're not used to doing. Like Tony's talking about the great partners that he's got over with DSM TV Live. And, you know, I've had the same kind of experience. I've been saved by our lead audio technician, Brian Dodson, being able to do a lot of this audio and video. He's actually making this happen right now, so you don't have to see my crazy hair and big headphones. And our audience development manager, Carly Sandos, who's also pretty much a kind of wizard with all of this digital marketing and outreach. And we've been able to adjust the organization very quickly in order to deal with this new normal, which has been a lifesaver.
Yeah, interesting. It's, and we don't have to comment on this too, but my wife's business, she's explored all these different platforms too. And Zoom was sort of interesting because you can have this experience, but the sound quality is not very good. And it's sort of meant to pick up voices and not instruments. And I don't know if you've heard that or not, but where it might have better interaction, the sound was not good. So she sort of come to the conclusion that Facebook Live was the best as well too. So next question for all three of you guys. You're all well connected, not only in the regions, you're following trends nationally and statewide. Any other examples within the music industry of things that you've seen or heard of that are really innovative or creative, that have sort of piqued your interest, or things that you think people should know about in terms of just some really interesting things to really pivot for the music industry and to be successful in this in the current pandemic situation?
Well, I've been trying to pick out you know, examples to follow throughout the nation from the beginning of this kind of shutdown. And really, you see people going one of two ways, it seems to me. There are wonderful clubs and institutions that have decided to just batten down the hatches and try to outlast this thing. And when they get the go-ahead, they'll just fire it back up again, which I see how that approach is very tempting and makes a lot of sense. And then there are a lot of other places that have completely gone all in turning their venues into basically a kind of production studio, kind of a lot like what Tony is doing, but you know, brick and mortar places that are trying to just go all digital like that. And it's crazy to watch even extremely well-funded, very talented things like the Broadway production the other night celebrating Stephen Sondheim's 90th birthday. I don't know if anyone saw that, but there were wonderful examples of how it worked brilliantly and some really embarrassing things that happened as well. It's a new normal for everyone. I've been watching, I don't know if the Maestro has seen any of this, but Carnegie Hall has a pretty amazing series going that it is so far very high quality live online programming from some of the world's greatest performers in the classical world. But you know, anywhere you look, people are trying to make a go of it.
And I would just say those two were spot on with what they said. I don't have a lot to add except as a performing musician like Max, you're always trying to figure out ways that you can, I don't want to be greedy and say, you know, but trying to figure out how to make some money. And like I've floated to a couple of people that I know, like taking my piano and guitar and a little speaker and sitting in the middle of somebody's cul-de-sac, and everybody comes out into their driveways, and you know, you can cheers from across the driveway, and you know, having some sort of connection while still being apart, sort of a thing. But it's like 5 of those a day that come to me, and 4.5 of them are just ridiculous. And I think that honestly is the only good one that I've come up with so far. But it's really made me try to think outside the box harder than I ever have in my life. And it's working so far. We'll just see how long it goes. And I know at some point everybody's going to get sick of watching me every Wednesday night, so we'll pivot then when we have to. But right now, everything seems to be as good as it can be.
Yeah, you know, the orchestra business is a dinosaur in some ways, and those orchestras that keep connected to their communities in a variety of creative ways are the ones that will survive this. I think Des Moines is a gem in that you know, we try to be accessible for all people. We try to be a source of community pride. We have a certain quality of product. All those things are what we stand for. But what Max and Tony, every artist does is we communicate. We're here for an audience. We're here to take whatever intention a composer has and interpret that intention and try to communicate that to an audience musically. And that's what we all have in common. And I've seen I completely agree with Max that there are some organizations that have completely embraced this as a challenge and coming up with new and exciting endeavors every day. The Rotterdam Philharmonic, for example, has taken some 60 musicians and played a piece of the last movement of the Beethoven Ninth, all recorded on individual sites in their homes, and then somebody spliced it together, and it came out really beautifully. On a local level, we have an award-winning string quartet with our academy, and they've done the same thing. They took the lead from them. They've done the same thing and played the last movement of the American String Quartet of Dvorak, which is a piece that's very close to Iowans' hearts, and it's really quite remarkable. So we continue to try to embrace it and try to come up with some really creative ideas. And I too, Max, as you've said, we've got a couple of really good IT people on our team that keeps me current with all this stuff and tries to communicate the overwhelming message. The message that we all have in common is music is just a great way to make the blues go away. And if you want, if you get up in the morning and you got a dark cloud over your head, all you have to do is get on YouTube and hear Yo-Yo Ma play the first movement of the Bach First Cello Suite. It'll take you 4 minutes and sunshine will enter in your day. That's just the power of music.
That moves, I think, perfectly into the next question. And we'll start with the maestro on this, but the question is, could each of you offer 3 artists or performances that you've recently discovered that we should check out? And I think Joseph just mentioned one. Do you have a couple more? And then I'll ask the same of both Max and Tony.
Sure. Yo-Yo Ma is one of them, and he's done some very creative things on his website. So that's one that I'm highly excited about. And when I am looking for some peace and tranquility, I go to, Max, you're going to love this, but if I can hear a great ballad by Sinatra or Tony Bennett or Ella sung, that brings me back to a time and a place that's far less complicated than life is these days. So that too is something that brings me great peace and brings a smile to my face.
That's awesome. Max, how about you?
Well, I'm some things that I've seen done recently within the shutdown that I thought were wonderful are Cecile McLaurin-Salvant, who is one of the great jazz singers alive today, one of the greatest ever. She's amazing. She was brought here just a few years back by Civic Music Association. They picked her up for their season, like they often do just before someone becomes absolutely internationally famous. She did a live stream show from her apartment in the early days of the shutdown with Sullivan Fortner, one of the great New York jazz pianists. And it's very cool to see. It's just like they're hanging out and running through music, like an open rehearsal, but they sound amazing. And that's available on her Facebook page, Cecile McLaurin Salvant. That's Salvant. And I would also plug a new series that Civic Music is doing here in Des Moines. Every week they have a different happy hour concert that they are streaming from somewhere in the world. Sometimes it has a local tie. I know that Des Moines native Hannah Marks, who just played here last week for one of our live stream shows, she actually lives in New York, but she is going to be featured on one of them soon. They did 2 of them with Emmett Cohen, who was slated to be on their season here at Hoyt Sherman Place. But he's, again, an internationally renowned jazz pianist, and he had a different guest each time with it. So I would check Cecile McLaurin Salvant's Facebook page and Civic Music Association's page. That's another great local organization to support during this time that's still offering some great programming for people.
I honestly, I just really enjoy seeing all of my fellow musicians doing their live streams from their basement. They have little signs up with their Venmo, or if they're technologically advanced enough, they put it on the screen. I saw a really cool thing yesterday, Crowded House. All the guys from the band played at their own house, and I don't know if it was Zoom or what the software was, but they played Don't Dream It's Over, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. And they did it all together at the same time from different locations. So I'm trying to figure out what they use to do that. There's some fellow dueling pianists named Drew and Colleen DeFore. They live in Michigan. They play every single night from 8 to 10, and they have a different theme every night. Like tonight is going to be 2 hours of just Beatles music. Last night they did all B-sides, so there weren't any hits, and there's just different things every single night. They are doing it really cool. But yeah, honestly, most of my focus is just I don't know, searching out friends of mine that are doing live streams and seeing the way that they're doing it. And I mean, my first thought is always, hey, can we get these guys into our studio to play live on our channel? But also, we don't want to get in the way of everybody doing their own streams either. So it's kind of a fine line to walk between, hey, could you give up making all the money yourself and coming on to our thing and sharing it with us? You know, even though our production quality is maybe a little bit better, but it's still, I don't know, some days it's hard to reconcile that. But yeah, just seeing all my musician friends in this community and around the state and around the country, just, you know, clawing for whatever they can get and being so good at it and trying to tell everybody about as many of them as I can. It's really cool for a really crappy reason, I guess.
I kind of want to jump on that for a second and say that I do think it's one of the silver linings of this time that, you know, there are a lot of people that are stuck at home and looking for content. And I think that there's a lot of people in Iowa that are maybe becoming aware of some of the arts and culture that we have here that they weren't even aware of before the shutdown started, you know, and that's something that I know that we have had a lot of people tune in and start to follow Noche's programming that did not come here before. And it's because they stumbled into it because they, you know, some friends told them about the live stream or something like that. But it's I think in situations like this, you have to be looking for silver linings. And that's one of them that I see for at least our city.
Good stuff. Next question. This is from Emily. how will this change the way you operate and entertain in the future? Have you found benefits to doing things online, and will you continue to do things virtually once things begin to open?
We actually have talked a little. Oh, I'm sorry, Maestro, please go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tony.
I was just going to say, we've talked about, how long does this last, and, do we still continue it on after people feel comfortable going back out and interacting again? And the short answer to that is yes, because to play into another part of that question, I feel like one of my favorite, I can only speak for myself, but I also have heard other people that come in and play for us say the same thing. It's like when you're sitting there playing and you can interact with like people that are commenting, it's like when you're on stage, you kind of want to do that anyway, but if there's 100 people there, it's impossible. And so being able to like what's the word I'm looking for? The ability to connect with somebody, not only as somebody who you enjoy watching perform, but also as a performer, being able to see real-time reactions to what you're doing is just like a super cool thing. And so I guess to the end of that, we probably will continue on in some form or another. We're just not quite sure how or for how long. And there are definite advantages to doing it this way versus being out in the real world at a normal gig. But obviously we'd all rather be doing that.
Yeah, I echo what Tony just said, that nothing's ever going to replace live music. We're all at our best when there's an audience, a live audience, and that magic dust that they spread over any performing musician, it just makes us better. And by the way, if you talk to a great athlete, they'll tell you that they're better when they have people in the stands watching them do what they do. So that's just a basic human instinct I think that every artist has. But indeed, we will learn from this. We will move forward from it. There will be some things that we'll want to continue. And most of all, as Max said, we're getting hits from people on our website that we've never heard of before. They're coming in from all over the world. And I don't know, I've never spent that much time on the computer except to research a few things here and there. But my goodness, there are people that are responding to some of the things that we're doing in a big way. We're grateful for that, but it also underscores the fact that there are a lot of people at home that are looking for arts activities, music, and we're grateful to have them. And I think that we certainly will move forward with something. I'm not sure what form it'll be yet, but I certainly think we'll have something. There's also one other thing that I wanted to mention, Jay, which is we also have to be respectful of our musicians. I have 95 musicians that sit close together on a 55 by 25 foot stage that are breathing the same air. So, once we have to be absolutely certain that once we gather together again, that we're capable of playing. And this may mean the new normal for us might mean that we play, more Mozart and Bach than we do Mahler and Shostakovich. I mean, pieces that are meant to be for smaller venues. Maybe the Civic Center, rather than having, a full house of 2,600 people all the time, maybe there's just 500 that are allowed in the beginning. We've got to be prepared for all this, and we're making plans right now for what this new normal may be.
We are definitely looking, like I said, on continuing the Wednesday, Saturday schedule that we currently have into the foreseeable future, but there's bound to be some kind of in-between transition, I think, at least for venues around Noche's size, where you're definitely not operating even close to full capacity, but you are able to accommodate some guests. And one of the big plans that I'm putting together right now is how to kind of meet that halfway by still doing some live streaming content while having some people allowed in the house. And there have definitely been perks to doing this online content that will lead to us doing significantly more of it in the future than we did before the shutdown. I don't know if that looks like permanently broadcasting these shows even as they occur in person, but I could see some of that happening. And I think in the foreseeable future, that will definitely be happening.
Question following up to the Maestro's comments, and thank you for sort of answering my question before I asked it, but as we sort of look into, as these restrictions are lifted, you know, we see it's sort of industry by industry sort of stair-stepping up, like it's sort of stair-step down, and probably one of the last things to come on are going to be, you know, massive crowds. We're dealing with the same thing with farmers market and things like that. You know, Maestro, you mentioned in terms of, you know, that sort of spread with not only your musicians, but audiences. You know, I think that was really interesting. And I'm sure that there's national associations that are sort of trying to guide that, and, you know, working with the Civic Center and others, trying to get our arms around that. You know, anything else to add on that, Maestro? And then also Max and Tony, from your perspective, I know that you're used, you know, whether you're playing at Noche or, you know, Tony playing at Woolies or whatever, what does that look like coming back on a limited scale?
Well, Jay, the power of the human spirit always amazes me. And, you know, how many years ago was it that we were able to walk aimlessly through an airport and get on an airplane with showing your ID once? Whoever knew that we would be standing in line for hours going through many security checks in order to be safe? Whoever thought that going into the Civic Center, you'd be wanded and bags would be going through to be sure we're safe? These are things that we adapt to. We throw this term around, new normal. I just think we have to expect the unexpected in the future, and now is the time to plan for it. And we will ensure, I know that I speak for Tony and Max as well, we will ensure that whoever comes to hear us play or whoever participates in those performances, that they will be in a safe and healthy environment.
I do know that I was on a couple of calls yesterday with members with people within our representative government for plans moving forward. And one of the things that I find other venue owners really crying out for is any kind of specific guidance as soon as possible, because there is a certain amount of due diligence that each of us can do. But at the end of the day, I am a musician and a businessman. I am not an epidemiologist. And I want to say that we can ensure people's safety, whether it's the musicians playing here or the audience members here. But, you know, we need to be guided through that as a society, and shown the way, even if it is extremely over cautious. I just would much more prefer that than everyone kind of going their own way and testing out methods in real time once we are, quote, open for business. That is very much at the forefront of my mind and many, many people within the industry. I think that's the big question.
Sorry, this is my second Zoom call ever. I'm still getting it down here.
It always happens at least once.
Thanks, Max. That makes me feel a lot better. No, we never have more than 10 people in our building at one time. So basically, if you got a lighting guy or a sound guy, like they're not invited. We need to keep it. We try to keep it at about 7, but it's not ever more than 10 people there. On the venue, like considering us a venue or whatever, we will be able to control that the same, because that's how we've been since St. Patrick's Day when we first started, and that's that there's never more than 10 people in the building at one time. We've got probably 10 different disinfectant hand sanitizer, antibacterial soap, hot water stations sprinkled throughout the place. There's a couple kitchens and bathrooms. And so that will remain to be the same way, I think, farther down the road, because that's just the way we have always been now for 5 weeks, always been. But as far as a gigging musician, like I said, I really don't have any concept of what a normal, like say a Woolies gig would be for me, you know, where there's supposed to be 600 people out in the crowd. And, you know, like, I just haven't wrapped my head around any part of it that might be doable. But I'm not saying it's not possible, because people are coming up with ridiculous stuff every day on how to get around this. And we as a community, I think, are very forward thinking, always have been. And I have no doubt that some people are going to come up with some smart things. Not me, of course, but other smart people.
I found this has been really fascinating and really great insights. We are kind of winding down our hour here. So what I thought I would do is just let each of you have some closing comments, and then just maybe some things for us to do as a community, things that we can do to help support musicians. I think it's important to remember musicians, it's their trade, it's their business, it's like other jobs, and there's a lot of full-time musicians in this community, and it's important that we treat them, venues and musicians, like small businesses in many ways. And so what can we do as a community to help musicians and venues and nonprofits like the Symphony to help weather the storm here? And what's your, if you could say, here's 2 or 3 things that we could all do and tell our friends about the importance of preserving our music industry here, in terms of what that means for not only the just general fabric of our community, but for our core ability to attract and retain talent, and to and our placemaking strategy. What are some things that you would call on all of us to do? And let's go in reverse order here. So I guess Max, you're up first.
Thanks, Jay. I would say this crisis is impacting people in all kinds of different ways. There are ways in which we are all in the same boat, but there are also ways in which, of course, some people are struggling a lot more than others. If you happen to be fortunate enough to find yourself in a position where your life is still relatively normal, economically speaking, I've been encouraging people, and I've been trying to do this in my own life, to think about their life prior to the crisis, those places and people, artists that really meant a lot to you in your everyday life. I think we're all finding that it is just strange at best to live this way without those places and experiences. It really adds so much to all of our lives. And I almost guarantee you that there is some way in which those small businesses are trying to operate in this time, or have some opportunity for people to contribute and help get them through this time. And I would encourage you to do that. Outside of that, you know, one huge chip on my shoulder I've always had about music is that quite often when you start talking about supporting the arts, it seems like it's a charitable kind of argument, something that's done like out of the goodness of your heart, which is good. But there is a strong, strong argument always to be made for the arts as being economically extremely valuable. And that is true in Des Moines as well. Anytime that the Symphony is putting on a concert, there are dozens of businesses around the Civic Center that are very happy that that concert is going on. The arts are extremely impactful to our economy, and, you know, places, even smaller places like Noche, we have that relationship with all of these small businesses that exist in our neighborhood and downtown Des Moines in general, all the Orchestrate restaurants, places like Proof. Anyway, so I would just encourage you to keep that in mind as we move forward in this time, that it is a vital piece of our economy that needs to be there when we come out of this.
Maestro.
I was struck the other day when I think I've been out of this house maybe 5 times in the last 3 weeks or so, and was struck by a very long line of cars in the West Des Moines area that I thought was a funeral. And what I came to realize, it was a line of cars waiting for to pick up food from a local food bank. And I think that hit me harder than anything that I've heard so far, that we have people that are in bad shape with basic shelter and food. And it got me to thinking about the food for our souls. That's what music does for us. It's not a frill. It's something that those of us that has been a part of our lives since the time we were 6 years old. This is why we exist. This is why we are what we are. This is what makes us the kind of people that we are. I've never met a musician. I've never met an artist that wasn't a giver. Someone that gave their souls to express themselves in ways that words cannot express. Those are the kinds of things I think about. And in terms of people supporting the artists, the arts, if you're in a position that you can help people, that's what I'd like to see you do. And whether it's the Symphony or the Opera or the Civic Center or Tony or Max, I mean, we're a small community, but oh my goodness, in Des Moines, are we thrilled to be a part of this wonderful arts community. We overachieve in Des Moines in so many areas, and I'm just so thrilled to be here and to accept the challenge of getting through this time, moving forward, and coming out stronger than we've ever been before.
Thanks, Maestro.
Yeah, and honestly, Max and the Maestro stole everything I was going to say, and I definitely would not have said it as well as they said it. I would just add to what they said that the best thing that you can do that doesn't cost a dime is to just share with your friends, whether it's a text or a Facebook message or tagging them on social media. Tell everybody about all of the things that you enjoy that are going on, because when we can all get back to trying to come within the county of normalcy, we're going to need a lot of people to get back out and start supporting everything that's going to start going on again. So please just share throughout as hard and as far as you can. And we would all appreciate that very much. And Jay, thank you to you and Abby and Emily and Tiffany, everybody else involved with having us on today. It's very cool to be a part of this.
Well, thanks everybody. Thanks to all 3 of you for your longtime friendship. And I have a very soft spot in my heart for live music and a wide eclectic taste, and have enjoyed watching all of you perform in your own ways many, many times. And so thank you for what you do. Thank you for your creativity and innovation, and look forward to continuing to work with all of you to help try to keep you guys successful. And again, as I started off, the live music scene and music scene in Greater Des Moines is an incredibly important part of our ability to attract and retain talent and placement and that placemaking skills. And I'm a big believer in that. And we need to continue to focus on that moving forward, even in these challenging times with these creative and innovative solutions. So thanks for what you're doing. If we can be helpful in any way, let us know. And look forward to watching your next performances.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.